My name is Mike Miles from Birmingham, Alabama. I was excited for a minute when Marcy said we have three very bright young people today. I thought she was introducing the three of us, but she was talking about y'all. I didn't understand that for a minute, so I'll have to give way to that. I got to tell you, before I give way to Judge Steele, one of the favorite experiences that I have ever had in the history of this competition was because of a California wild card team. When the competition was over, the next morning, I got up by myself, pouring down rain, and got a cab to the Jefferson Memorial. I never go to Washington without going by there, ever. And I went in, and the California wildcard team was there. And we just stood there under the dome in the rain talking about what we'd seen and what we'd done. And they let me have my picture made with them, and they sent me pictures for the next month or so. And it was one of my favorite out of hearing room experiences I have ever had. I am sick that I can't go to the Jefferson Memorial and meet you there in the morning. I wish I could, but hopefully one day the three of you and your teacher, I'll have the chance to meet you there and have my picture made with you. That would be fun. Congratulations on getting here today. You're going to do great.
You're muted.
Yep. Sorry. I would just love to come to California to see you for any reason. But my name is Candida Steele, and I'm retired as a judge on the U.S. Civilian Board of Contract Appeals, and I've been with this program for 20 years, thanks to Marcy, and I'm delighted to hear what you have to say today.
Please introduce yourselves and your teacher. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. We're Foothill High School's Unit 4, representing the state of California and the city of Pleasanton. My name is Nick Jang.
My name is Subha Khan.
And my name is Jocelyn Tao. We'd like to thank the judges, the audience, and the timekeeper for being here today. And we'd like to introduce our coaches, Mr. McBride, Mr. Dedamore, and Mr. Constantelos.
Lovely. The question is number 2, and it reads as follows. Members of Congress are not only legislators, but they, quote, are also inquisitorial and should meet frequently to inspect the conduct of the public officers, close quote. How effectively do you believe Congress has used its investigatory power? Explain the differences, if any, between Congress's power to investigate and the power of oversight. Which power, in your opinion, is more significant? How effectively do you believe Congress has used its oversight powers? You may proceed. Thank you.
The Constitution tasks Congress with protecting the general welfare of the United States. It has long been understood that to do so, it must first identify areas of need that can be supported by legislation, and then create new laws to better serve the people.
We argue Congress has effectively used its investigatory powers. We view effective investigations as those that both 1, successfully gather information, and 2, use relevant information to craft legislation dealing with present problems, both standards of which have been repeatedly met in the past.
Congress has successfully gathered information through its decades-long studies into child poverty. In 2017 alone, 12 congressional hearings discussed combating these issues, and research from years of investigations have resulted in an expanded child tax credit policy. The most recent change is in the American Rescue Plan, which expands cash payments to eligible families and will cut child poverty by 40%.
Congress also consistently uses gathered information to craft legislation. In response to terrorist attacks, the 9/11 Commission report led to the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. During the post-2008 Great Recession, Congress conducted 67 investigations that resulted in the Dodd-Frank Financial Reform Bill, which reorganized the financial regulatory system.
Investigatory powers overlap with Congress's power of oversight within congressional hearings, but they differ in their purpose. Investigations primarily inform Congress on its own policymaking, while oversight is more routine in nature to keep other branches accountable. Between these two powers, the investigatory power is more significant.
An inherent power derived from Article 1, Section 1, oversight serves to hold the executive branch accountable and verify that it's executing laws properly. In a post-Watergate reform in 1978, Congress created the inspectors general positions as watchdogs over executive agencies to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse.
Meanwhile, investigatory powers are meant to address urgent public issues and gather information. As former Representative Lee Hamilton put it in 2013, investigations offer Americans the chance to find out what went wrong and to fix the problem.
In contrast to the importance of investigations, oversight has eroded due to partisanship. Inspectors general have become politicized following President Trump's removal of over 5 inspectors general in 2019 due to political differences.
More generally, this action reflects Congress's failure to effectively use its oversight powers. This is due to 1, partisanship, and 2, inadequate mechanisms of enforcement. In Trump v. Mazars 2020, the Supreme Court upheld that congressional oversight, including the power to issue subpoenas, was inherent to the legislative process.
Congressmen, however, would rather abuse oversight for party politics. For instance, the 2014 Select Committee on Benghazi had then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testify for 8 hours with few revelations. Notably, Republican House leaders explained the committee succeeded because it damaged Clinton's reputation.
Congress also lacks the power to enforce its subpoenas. Historically, oversight actions have entailed a struggle between Congress's power of contempt and executive privilege, a recognized right by the executive to withhold information.
In 1984, the Office of Legal Counsel issued a memo enabling executive officials to refuse subpoenas on the basis of executive privilege, curtailing congressional efforts for information. In 2012, Congress was powerless when Attorney General Eric Holder refused to turn over documents. In these ways, oversight has fallen behind investigatory powers in supporting Congress as a centerpiece of American government. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting insight into the question. Now, you indicated that, in your opinion, Congress has effectively used its investigative powers to gather information and address problems, and you focused on child poverty. Would you still think that to be the case, given where in our country there are so many children who are lacking adequate nutrition and sufficient resources to be educationally competitive with their peers?
I definitely think that this child tax poverty is the right step in the direction. And I definitely believe that there are instances where Congress still needs to help children and be raised out of poverty in terms of education. But this is definitely the step in the right direction. Congress, in terms of education, actually recently passed the Future Act. It was House Resolution 5363 in 2019. And this was to permanently increase the authorization of appropriations in terms of Pell Grants at the undergraduate level. So even though it is not in terms of nutrition, we do see Congress working for the children and young people of our nation.
We also do see congressmen who are willing to conduct long investigations into topics that they are passionate in. We have Representative DeLauro, who conducted 18-year-long investigations into child poverty. And although often long investigations might be attributed to inefficiency in the government, we see that it's not the case in such investigations, because Representative DeLauro was waiting for outside sources to be able to provide backup for her investigations. And she was able to find that the National Academy of Sciences supported her measures that, while were expensive, were less expensive than the $800 billion that the nation loses annually as a result of child poverty. So if congressmen apply the same passions to kids who are lacking in education, I think we can have adequate results.
Thank you.
Unmute, Candy. Unmute.
What powers, if any, do you think Congress has ceded to the executive and judicial branches?
I think that one such power that Congress has ceded to the executive branch is its war powers, and this can be generally seen with like after the Vietnam War, Congress tried to rein in the executive's use of war powers in the Vietnam War, which were highly controversial, via the War Powers Resolution of 1974. But the issue with such a resolution is that war is often a subject that congressmen don't want to touch because they don't want to be seen as taking a side, as that can be politically detrimental to them. And so to that effect, the War Powers Resolution has failed to rein in the presidency and has in some instances actually empowered the president to continue to use war powers without consulting Congress, which under the Constitution, Congress does share some war powers under Article 1, Section 8.
But we can see that while Congress did eventually vest the war powers with the executive branch, they have powers to take them back that we don't see them using often. For example, the Case Church amendments, in which that Congress's Case Church Committee was able to investigate into President Nixon's covert bombings in Cambodia. And what the amendments did was essentially hold back funding for the war until they were able to come up with a peace treaty with Vietnam.
Thank you. Judge Miles?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I was moved by the example you gave about some good investigations, but obviously there have been some bad ones. Should there be additional limit on Congress's power? I know that there are small investigations that go on all the time. That's a running thing. That's part of their oversight. But should there be some limit placed on their ability to just decide to have a Benghazi hearing and have it? Or is there no way to do that?
Well, I think it is really important to note that the expansive investigatory powers given to Congress in Article 1, but in terms of limits, there actually are limits of Congress in terms of their investigatory powers. For example, in Kilburn v. United States 1881, the Supreme Court stated that neither House of Congress possesses any general power to make an inquiry into private affairs of the citizens. So there are necessary guardrails in place against Congress abusing their investigatory powers.
I would like to correct my unit mate. I believe she meant Kilbourne v. Thompson, 1881.
And furthermore, there are, beyond that, there's also additional, for example, the Fifth Amendment allows witnesses in testifying to take the Fifth and refuse to give testimony that might incriminate them. This was actually used during the HUAC committee, during the Red Scare, in which several supposed communists took the Fifth to prevent testifying. And this was actually upheld in Quinn v. United States, 1955, in which the Supreme Court said that Congress can't just convict someone, or Congress can't hold someone who used their Fifth Amendment in contempt.
But given that, what you have just said, if they have this quasi-judicial power to subpoena, do they not have the ability to enforce the subpoena to where they can have someone testify if they're going to help to benefit our country and create essential legislation?
Yes, let me keep it go. Oh, okay. Yes, we do believe that they are currently lacking the power to enforce its subpoenas. While they do have subpoena power, we see that often there have been instances where, for example, the president would use their executive privilege to withhold information that bars Congress from being able to get the information that they want in the first place.
I think that under under Title II of the U.S. Code, Section 194, whenever Congress holds someone in contempt for not complying with their subpoena, the Attorney General is supposed to prosecute these claims. Now, the issue with that is the Attorney General can just say no and not prosecute the claims, which just happened. And that's where the inability to use the courts comes in. So, and that's actually why that one of our proposed reforms would be to have an independent counsel that would be able to prosecute those claims and not rely on the Attorney General.
Thank you. Judge Steele?
Does that make you think of inspector generals or more like special counsel?
More like special counsel. We would go towards a model that falls similar to the expired Independent Counsel Act of 1978.
Okay, thank you. And then do you Mike, why don't you jump in while I find something here?
Okay, let's talk a minute about them investigating themselves, particularly individual members that do things. If people have taken a bribe, that becomes a judicial matter pretty quickly, something like that. But in the last 6 months, Marjorie Taylor Greene said some things and they stripped her from all her committee assignments. Matt Gaetz has done some unspeakable things and the courts will wind up having to probably deal with him. I think the representative from my state incited a riot and got away with it, so far at least, scot-free. He's running for the Senate now in my state. If you're a member of the Congress, what would someone have to rise to, or maybe better yet, sink to, for you to decide that the House or Senate needed to zero in on them for a little while and spend the time and money to publicly investigate?
Well, Congress generally is a self-regulating body. As stated in Article 1, Section 5, they're allowed to create the rules and actually censure their own members. The last time a congressman was expelled from office was actually in 2002, a representative by the names of James Trafficant, who was expelled from Congress due to counts of bribery and obstruction of justice. So this is a case where Congress actually took the necessary steps to hold one of their representatives accountable.
When was the last time they censored? You're right. When was the last time they censored somebody?
Well,
It's okay if you don't know, because I can't remember either.
Last week, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no. Well, censorships are generally like they're generally I mean, yeah, they're in the Constitution, but they're generally are pretty, like not very effective in some sense, because they're just mean like they're just a slap on the wrist. So that's why like they don't, that's why like other methods would probably take place besides that.
I know one last time they were. Earl Hilliard I see you, Marcy. Earl Hilliard is a congressman from my state, and he was censored by the House for having gone to Libya and calling it an official trip when he had not been licensed to do that. He went there and met with Gaddafi and got censored for his trouble, and he deserved it. Judge Ken, I'll yield back. Well, boy, I thought they were good.
Great job. Great job, California. We're so proud of you, and we're so proud of the work your teacher has been doing with you and preparing you for the We the People testimony. And now the judges will give you some feedback.
Lovely, thank you. Wonderful job in your opening remarks. Some good examples that were provided in response to our follow-up. The ceding of the executive power, you hit the war powers, which is typically what occurs. You mentioned the President Nixon era regarding Vietnam. Just for your information, in response to what you had said, one of you had said about the Fifth Amendment being taken, constitutional Fifth Amendment privilege. When I was approaching you with respect to their ability, I was seeking their ability to grant immunity if there is, in a criminal context, the possibility of criminal charges. But the majority of the congressional investigation do not involve criminal offenses, but in advancing litigation, the civil investigative aspect of what will help create the necessary changes, just so that I'd share that with you. But wonderful job, and thought of the role of a special counsel to facilitate making sure they're effective. So nicely done. Thank you.
Great. I thought that was a lovely job. Thank you so much. Starting from gathering information to use for legislation was a nice way to start. The child tax credits was a really good point to make of how investigations may have taken many, many years, but have worked out well and served us well. And Dodd-Frank was another example of that. And I'm always happy to hear Lee Hamilton quoted, and especially interested in your investigation of Nixon's involvement with Cambodia. That was very helpful. I hope you've had a really good time here, because we certainly have had fun talking with you all. And I know you're going to make wonderful citizens, every one of you, and wonderful colleagues to your friends, and encouraging them to go vote, as you will every time you have. But I hope you'll think about representing us more specifically than just being a good citizen, because you've got the education now and the understanding that we need in Congress and in our local and state governments. So I hope you certainly have prepared yourselves for going further in this field, and thank you. It's been a pleasure watching you do it.
Yeah, I agree with what they both said. Three things real quickly before Marcy throws us out. It's late in the day, and this was the 11th unit that we had a chance to visit with today, and we've asked a lot of different questions, and we were kind of tired of asking the same ones, and so we dug up a few new ones in this 8 minutes that we had not asked today or didn't expect to ask you. And several times you didn't just answer something right away. You thought about it and you analyzed it, and then you answered it and you nailed it. I had to stop and think who the last one was that got censored, and it may have been Earl. Earl Hilliard's a friend of mine, but he deserved to be censored by the House, and nobody may have been since then. I don't know. But you thought about it, and then you answered, and you came up with it, and the answer made sense. And I wish I could do that. I used to could, but I can't do that anymore. And
he never makes any sense.
Yeah, she's right. She's 100% right about that. The last thing that I would say to you is that we see a 3-member team up there, a very good one, but we know that there are 3 other people sitting up there with you that you're remarkable teachers are up there with you, and we can tell the difference they have made with you. Stay in touch with them, and as you have hard decisions to make in the future, stay in touch with them, because they've obviously had a great influence on you to this point, and we congratulate them today as we congratulate you. Nice job.
Good luck to you all. Good luck to you all.
Thank you so
luck.
much.
Thank you.